morning, our dear esteemed viewers. Welcome back to this episode of the Inter-University Interface Debates. Today, I'm your host, Douglas Drekonen, and I'm joined by students from Kampala University who will help us unpack the conversation around the credibility of elections in Uganda since 1961 to date, but also in giving their assessment of the credibility of these elections. They are going to, of course, understand that Uganda has had an unending quest for credible, free, and fair elections from 1961 to date. So in no particular order, allow me go ahead and introduce my guests, but also give them the chance to say hello to you, our dear esteemed viewers, so that we can dive straight into the conversation of today. I'll begin from my immediate right here, Ms. Shakira Ali. You're most welcome.
Thank you, Mr. My name is Shakira Ali from Kampala University, offering secretarial studies, my first year, first semester at KU. So I'm glad to be one of the participants in this debate, and we welcome everyone to come and watch and of course to listen to our views. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Shakira Ali. We're very happy to have you here. Right next to Shakira, we are joined by Omwero Samson Pius.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Very happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can you say hello to the viewers too?
Yes, good morning. This is Civic Space TV, right?
Yes.
I am Omwero Samson Pius. I'm from Kampala University, Education Science. And with that, I'm glad that I'm part of the people that are engaging in this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Pius. We're definitely looking forward to an interesting conversation.
Definitely.
You're most welcome, Beatrice Naigaga.
Oh, thank you so much.
We're happy to have you here.
I'm so glad to. Once again, I will say good morning to dear viewers and listeners. I'm Naigaga Beatrice by the names. A student, Kampala University, second year, Bachelor's in Arts Education. Second year student. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be part of the debate.
Thank you. Right next to Beatrice Naigaga, we are joined by, I hope I get this right, Indigobie. Right?
No.
You help me pronounce that. I don't want to massacre your name, but I'll just call it Jackson.
Okay, it's fine. Yeah, most people find it to pronounce it, but I'm called Digombie Jackson. Digombie Jackson.
All right.
I'm a student also at Kampala University, and I'm very happy to be part of this discussion. I'm in my second year doing Bachelor's of Computer Science with IT.
And all of you belong to the Hope Initiative Club.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
All right. Thank you. So let me start with you, Pius. Just as before we started this conversation, you were enthusiastically giving me your opinions in somewhat not a very direct way. And I said, okay, I saw the energy that you are oozing. I'm very ready for the debate. So I said, you know what? Let me start with you. So the conversation today is on the credibility of elections in Uganda from our history, from 1961 to date. But also you know that Uganda has been, of course, yearning for credible, free and fair elections. Some people say we have had credible, free and fair elections for some time. Others disagree. But let us start with the historical context. It's very important to lay foundation on understanding our historical journey when it comes to elections. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Jack. The first thing, when we're engaging, we defined what a credible election is. One, it must be free, it must be fair, it must be transparent, inclusive, it must be accountable. So with those parameters, we're going to define what an election, how credible would it be, right? So what's the historical part of it? One, Uganda got its independence in 1962. First had an election in 1961, right? 1961 as a boycott. Now 1962, we have our first election, we have the first government with a ceremonial president, and now we have a prime minister.
Yes.
After that, I think we're having an election again in 1965. Is that true? Then we have the Pigeon Constitution, which extended the powers of the president to executive president, no longer ceremonial as it was. After now we have the abolishment of the kingdoms in the Pigeon Constitution. After that, there is a lot happening there, and we don't seem to have an election notable until the 1980s. 1980s, but before that, we can't ignore the figure of Amin Dada, how he played a very good role in how the politics was running or the elections were running. So 1971, 1979, we have Idi Amin Dada. We now come to 1980, we have an election. Supposedly said by the people that were there, not us, because we are not there. They tell us it was filled with a lot of fraud, manipulation, intimidation, militarization. That was the election. That's what the definition of an election. Then in 1980, now we have an election again, 1994. 86?
Yeah, that's
86.
86, we didn't have an election.
We didn't have
we just had
the movement. All right, now we have 1994, a lot is happening, 2001, POO is 16, in 11, 2021, no. So as we're engaging, we calculated that Uganda must have had around 8 notable electoral cycles in and out. But it has had, but it must have had 12 to 13. And of the 8, it is one person. Of the 8, we are seeing one figure as the president. So of the 8, 6 of them, one figure, 2 different faces. You get that? So with that historical context, we can now judge, was that credible, depending on the parameters I've listed: fair, free, transparent, inclusive, secure, accountable. With that, we can judge from 1961. Was it fair? Was it inclusive? Was it secure? Was it accountable?
All right.
Was it transparent?
We shall get to that.
Okay.
We shall get to those parameters that you lay.
Okay.
But from that historical perspective, we now see, and from just what you've said, from your assessment, someone who is already watching, they're already forming an opinion.
Yeah.
And let's start the conversation now with you, Shakira, as I get to Jackson and Beatrice. What is now your own informed view of the credibility of elections from 1962 to date? Just pick a time frame and then give us your analysis.
Yes, I may not be different to Mr. Pius's historical background, but I have an addition. To me, when it comes to 1961 Constitution, it was just a preparation of our Uganda for the independence. It's still that in that year we were still being governed by the British. So this British was the one organizing, preparing our country for the best independence, or to have its own independence. So this means that, as you know, when you are given for example, I'm giving birth to my first kid, I cannot ignore that, because that is a step forward to the others. So to me, the credibility of this 1961 Constitution, it has given a part. 1961 election. It has given a way forward or a path to other elections. For example, those of Amin Dada, that was in 1966 to 1971 to 1979.
Yes.
So the man didn't have any election, just backed in by the army, not so. So it was a coup d'etat. So there was no election. It means by looking at the backward of the historical of the DC 1961 Constitution up to date, these people, they were some a bit fair and free, and to another extent they were not fair and free. For example, there are some negative positivities of that 1961 elections, and there are some positive. For example, one of the positive things is that our Uganda was introduced to registration.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
What do you mean Uganda was introduced to legislature?
What I mean that parliamentary thing. By that time, we were just being headed by the British, and we had the British governor by that time.
All right, so let's first get this right.
Okay.
The 1961 election
Yeah.
happened. You know, among the first political parties in Uganda was the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
So the Democratic Party was a party that was formed around the 1950s, late 1950s.
Yeah.
And in its coming into existence, before pre-independence, there was the British wanted to introduce an internal software.
Of course.
That means we have our own leaders,
Yeah.
but they will still control
There
foreign
was
affairs, etc., etc.
That's why they brought in the 1967 constitution to hand over the whole power to the
Yes,
what? To the government.
I'm getting to that.
Yeah.
So in 1961, what we notice, we see the first election happening. And in that election, remember, Buganda boycotted
Of course.
the election.
Of course.
And the head of the Democratic Party, who was Benedicto Chiwanuka,
Yeah.
the Buganda claimed that he betrayed Buganda because Buganda had stepped away from the election.
Of course.
So in the election that happened in 1961, DP swept across the country,
Yeah.
hands down. And because Buganda weren't interested in the election and they did not participate in the election.
Of course.
So when that election happened in 1961,
Mm.
UPC, which was also another party that was against DP,
Of course.
had minimal participation. But long story short,
Mm.
the reason as to why we have the second election in 1962 is because UPC and Kabaka Yeka worked together.
Of course.
So my question to you is, the foundation that was laid in 1961 and 1962,
Yeah.
did it lay a foundation of betrayal? Did it lay a foundation for credibility of elections? Or did it lay a foundation for Uganda that we are experiencing all the ills today? You can answer that and I'll get to you, Beatrice, on that side.
Okay. To me, I was still explaining. To a smaller extent, it gave a credibility to the elections. Then to another to the other side again, they were, because what I know by this, it can't be only negative. I think what I know about things, there are positivity and negativity of it. This thing, it gave a way forward to other elections, but on the other side, Uganda boycotted. It means it was not fair and free. If it was fair and free, Uganda would have not what? Boycotted.
I'll leave you on that point because Uganda boycotting the election has a whole historical perspective to it. But let's just leave it on that front. Beatrice,
Okay.
the question still stands. Did the 1961 and 1962 elections, did it lay a foundation of betrayal or democratic practice?
Democratic practice. Yeah, thank you so much once again, our moderator, for the opportunity granted to me, at least to put right what is really in a mess, that is the electoral process of the Ugandan government. Right from the inception, that was 1961, when we see the British handing over, I don't know if I can say prematurely, a group of
Internal
people
self-governance.
to a group of people that now this is your thing, independence, have it. I don't know how I can call this, but sincerely speaking, if you look at our status by then, credibility would come in. But the way the independence, or at the time the independence was granted to us, we were not really prepared for this. And as a historian, I'll first of all blame the British government for having failed to first organize us before giving us. It is like the independence, giving us the independence. It is like you having your child, your boy, your firstborn.
So are you saying that the foundation laid was a foundation of betrayal and not democratic practice?
Most of the mess we are going in, most of the mess we have, is as a result of the colonial era. They didn't give us the guidelines. We were given something, we didn't know the background. Fine, we know the definitions of democracy, we know the definitions of elections, constitution, as you've been hearing our colleagues say. But do we really know where they came from? Look at where the democracy comes from. For them, the fact is that they know all the setup of the democracy, then it is very easy for them to handle it. Back to the point. If we don't put right our elections, then we may still continue in a mess. The 1961 elections, this was the first history. Uganda was handed over the independence by the British government. And the political parties by then, we had UNC and then Kabaka Yeka. Kabaka Yeka.
We had UPC. We had UPC, Kabaka Yeka, which came in 1962.
Yeah.
No, it came in 1962.
1962.
And we also had the Democratic Party.
Kabaka Yeka, I wanted to bring it. Kabaka Yeka was in the process, but they boycotted the elections of 1961. So Kabaka Mutesa did not stand in. So what happened? We CDP winning the elections of 1961. But the fact that there was that discontentment, it forced the politicians by then. Can I talk about people like Our Excellency Obote? It forced them to reorganize the elections simply because the other ones were boycotted. So what happened is in 1962 now, where we are. This is where we had some elections. I can't tell really if they could come up with what is right, but what came out was a mess. Okay. Simply because it was characterized by instabilities, by disorganizations. People were ill-prepared, ill-trained. So, financial problems, we cannot avoid that. There's a lot of poverty in the country.
Let me just hold you there.
Yes.
From your submission, I would then summarize, because my question was two-pronged.
Yes.
Looking at whether the foundation laid in 1961 and 2 was foundation of betrayal or democratic practice. And your entire submission sways to the ground that the foundation laid was betrayal.
Yeah, it was really betrayal.
All right, let me get to you,
Jackson.
Digumbi.
Yes. The conversation that Shakira and Beatrice have just had right now on the foundation laid in 1961 and 1962 begets me to ask you, what patterns of electoral malpractice can therefore be traced across different regimes from 1961 to date? Because if the foundation laid then was one of betrayal, does this then speak to what we have experienced throughout our journey of so-called democratic practice?
Okay, thank you so much. Addressing the issues of malpractice, basing on the election that began in 1961, right?
Yeah.
We first of all need to, because the topic, we have a statement that says the unending quest, right? So, which means it is not just today. The question has been moving throughout ever since we received our independence.
Yeah.
In 1961, there are some notable key factors we see. If we're talking about democracy, that is doing something for the people, from the people, by the people, right? That is by Abraham Lincoln, I guess. There is something that we're missing out. You realize that looking in 1961, if you are key observant, the reason for boycotting, it wasn't for the Baganda just. It was for them as the leader. It was, there is some bit of selfishness, right? Because they didn't want that central governance whereby somebody is also going to rule them. So they didn't agree with that. We see a point of selfishness. It comes to 1966 when they had made an alliance with Kabaka Yeka and 1962 when they made an alliance
because
with...
the elections of 1962 happened in April.
Yeah, in April. So after making this alliance, you realize that the same notable factor is there, selfishness. We not consider people, right? Because the person they allied with, in 1966, he made what we call the pigeonhole constitution, which had no discussion with any other member.
Let me correct you. Just allow me to do so.
All right.
You see, the relationship between Kabaka Yeka and UPC was a marriage of convenience.
Yeah.
In that DP already had a force. You see, prior to 1962, in 1961, what we notice, we see that the head of DP was a Muganda, Benedicto Chiwanuka.
Chiwanuka.
And he made a statement when he won the election in 1961. he was being interviewed in State House in Tebe, that there were some grievances and issues that Kabaka has. What did it say in that interview? He said that if there are any grievances and issues that the Kabaka has, let him come to me and we discuss. Now, propaganda was spread across.
Yeah.
There was a newspaper that published saying that Benedicto Tiwanuka said if Kabaka has issues, let him come to me. Understanding that historical context, the Baganda of then were very proud. And the person who was saying this is a Muganda,
Right.
a subject of
The
Kabaka.
Kabaka.
Now, knowing that historical background and the fact that they later on realized that them not participating in the elections was a bad idea, that led to the marriage between UPC
And Kabaka.
and who took advantage of that? Dr. Milton Obote,
Obote.
because he knew if he had the support of Uganda,
Yeah,
he could go ahead,
And
and that is okay. So now, from your submission, because we're looking at the trace
of malpractice, right?
how would you then relate from that historical context to date?
To date, okay. Remember, this is the first step of after us receiving their independence. So we want to see how it laid the foundation to up to date. Do you realize that when these people came into power, it was no longer for the people? Because bringing in the pigeonhole constitution, when the supreme power is no longer for the prime minister, right? It is now to the president. And this guy had overthrown the ceremonial president we had. So he took it in and he became the president. That is 1966, and he abolished the kingdoms. So there is a factor of dictatorship. It is not democracy, right? So and that's why we see that even during after the overthrow of him by His Excellency Museveni, he also talked about the overstaying in power, dictating. Because let me talk about the issue of dictation, whereby there is nothing like people deciding. We are talking about the credible, free and fair elections, right? But do you realize that in the constitution of the pigeonhole, there was nothing like people's opinion? There wasn't something like people's opinion. It was just an individual basis for his own advantage, as you say. He took advantage of it. Now, you trace the malpractice in elections, whereby you see that the issue of malpractice and fraud in elections is just for the favor of the people in power. Yeah, like we can just recently see it, because if somebody came in 1986 and was giving us reasons that people who overstay in power, one of his manifestos in the famous speech, that people who overstay in power, militarization, but later on, he has the things they seem to be, because it is not understandable if you say people who overstay in power, yet we are seeing somebody for over 6 terms. So I don't know which kind of staying in power this person was talking about.
Let me just hold you there and bring in Pius.
All right.
Pius,
Yes, sir.
the conversation right now is getting interesting.
Yeah.
And I am interested in understanding to what extent has our historical experience of disputed elections shaped our current political culture?
Thank you. Now, this is it. You see, when we're studying history, we're back in Senior 1, your teacher will tell you, why do you study history? He will tell you to know the past, well and good, but to know how the past defines the future and the present. So if you see from 1961 up to date, our very own past has defined the future and even the present that is happening now. From 1961, that part of boycotting the election, for so long Buganda had wanted to be independent. Buganda never wanted to be part of Uganda. And these British, these white men are saying, no, we want you 56 tribes to be together under one person, and we believe you can be together. That alone has a mark in the history. Number 2, when we come to 1965 and 1967, that alone has a mark in it. When we come to 1970, 1971, 1979, no election, the ground is clear. That alone has a part in it. Now we come to 1995. The new, I would call him Jesus, has come, giving you all these promises. You're going to go to heaven with me. I'm going to give you a house in heaven. I'm going to give you paradise. Boom. for the last now
40 years.
40 years. This person is here. How does all that define who we are and where we are going? One, it tells us of who Ugandans are. It tells us of who we are. Number two, it tells us of the, you see, leaders reflect where the communities are, right? Leaders reflect where communities are. If today you saw such a parliament, it would define the constituencies from which they come from. So when we see the characters of the leaders we voted for, they define who we are. What am I saying? Uganda needs to go back and define who it is.
Just as you make the point of we need to go back to define who we are as a nation, allow me to give you more context. Historically, even before our constitutional history, food for thought. Did you know that the first election malpractice happened in 1954?
Oh, no.
No, not
All right, let me just give you this to help inform the question of how historical experiences inform our present. All of you are aware of the Uganda National Congress. The Uganda National Congress that was founded by the godfather of independence, Ike Musazi. Ike Musazi, when he was pushing for independence, he formed the UNC before it split into two, later on became the Uganda People's Union. But let's focus on UNC. In UNC, in around 1954, Ike Musazi was when the Legiko had, they went ahead and said the blacks can now appoint like 3 people on the Legiko, on the Legislative Council. Ike Musazi was so prominent that the British was afraid of having another Nkrumah rise in Uganda because he had influence from the people. Yes? So when he wanted to be part of the Legiko, the British said no. Ike Musazi sent his deputy. The eve before his deputy could be elected the next day, he was whisked away and jailed. That's the first time we experienced election malpractice, even before independence. Now, question is, from that context and background that I've given you, she talked about how the British gave us election, or give us this idea of democracy prematurely, and an idea that we are not akin to. Comes back to you. As you're giving your submissions on our historical experiences, how does it influence our present as young people?
As young people.
as young.
Now, see this. Now, see this. You see, as I've told you, leaders reflect who the people are. If you have a leader who says this and this and this, it only reflects what the hearts of men are in a particular country. Now, if you look at Ike Musazi, he reflects what the people are. That's why I'm bringing this philosophical question, this existential question, of we need to go back on the drawing board as young men, as we have seen the history throughout, and define who Uganda is. How did we get here? How did we get in all this mess? And if we know that, then we can have a discussion on constitutional affair, credibility of election. Because if we don't know that, we shall keep on in a cycle that does not end. Because I would want to let us all know that Uganda's problem to a credible election is not the constitution. Because we have had the constitution. 1961 it was there. Pigeonhole. We now have a constitution. But still, the elections are not credible. You get that? So it's no longer a question of lack or possession of a constitution. We have it.
Okay, let me just hold you there. Let me hold you there. And you have something to say? You also have something to say?
Yeah.
All right, please, just in 60 seconds, respond to.
Yes.
Yes.
Pius is trying to struggle and see what really with the future Ugandans now, what should we do to put the election as a right? Let there be transparency in our elections. People should be accountable for whatever they do. If you do something wrong, serve the punishment so that we can have a better future. But if we don't put things right, then our nation is still going to continue. We shall continue struggling and grumbling each and every time.
Okay. All right. Shakira.
Okay, thank you.
An addition,
For me, I think it's a it's not about the constitution. It's about our leaders that we give that opportunity. For example, I think our leaders that we vote don't love Uganda, but they have what they want in Uganda. You know, loving something, you love it inside heart. That means you can't do anything to damage that thing when you love inside. But when you have just interest, it's like you want to just remove a best of that thing, and so that you can use it for your own what benefits, for your selfishness. So for me, I think even though we shall choose how many leaders, we shall bring how many constitutions, but when people have no love for our country as Uganda, it will remain the same.
Okay.
When
Let me hold you there.
Okay.
Let me hold you there because
Okay.
now we are going into solutions.
Oh.
But I want to first steer us back to the issue of credibility, fairness, and of course what you mentioned, inclusivity. Jackson,
Yes.
the 1995 Constitution, few days ago, before Independence Day, we celebrated 30 years of the Constitution.
On 8th October, right?
Yes, 8th October, 30 years.
Mm.
And the foundation that the 1995 Constitution has laid has all of us on this, most of us on this panel, I believe, we have known this Constitution. I think we have grown only knowing this Constitution.
Mm.
yeah.
And this Constitution, they said, has laid a foundation for Uganda we want to see. Under its preamble, it captures we the people of Uganda, remembering our historical past, which is of course filled with tyranny, political injustice, among others.
Yeah.
That preamble that was captured by Justice Benjamin Odoki informs the Uganda we want to see. But the question is, has the spirit of that constitution lived? Honorable Miriam Matembe in the Constitutional Conference said the constitution died just 10 years after its promulgation.
Yeah.
But let me come to you. Question is, the 1995 Constitution promised free and fair elections. 30 years later, has it delivered on that promise?
Okay, thank you so much. The 1995 Constitution, basing on the spirit of the people who wrote it, it is very valid and it is a good constitution. And I think it's in record, it's one of the best constitutions in Africa, right? The people who wrote this constitution, they had love, the spirit for the country. And they wrote all this basing on the love of the people, right? Because they had to, you're talking about the free and fair elections when it comes to the quotation of elections inside there. The elections currently, they don't reflect what the constitution is. You see, it's like the laws are set, they are there in place, but there is what we call indirect violation of it. Let me put that in quotes. It's just indirect violation of it. We make people believe and say that indeed we are participating or we are doing what the constitution says. But in other words, it is not what we are seeing, right? Because if at all someone can put an amendment not basing on the spirit, but for his or her favor. Let me put his or her favor. Like we talk about the 2017 amendment of the age limit. You realize whom was it favoring? Us, the Ugandans, or somebody by them? It's a question. So you realize that the constitution of the 1995, it is very valid and it is right. It didn't violate anything. But the people who are in power, they are just violating it.
So the constitution is working in favor of certain individuals,
Yes.
and not in favor of Ugandans.
That is
Can I
right.
say something?
Yes, Pat.
Now, you see, in Africa, it's not about ink and paper. We are not so attached to ink and paper. So you can't bring ink and paper to somebody before their sight and tell them, this is what will take you somewhere. It's not us in Africa. That is why I'm bringing this to all us as Ugandans, the core existential questions. This core existential question, who are we? If ink and paper cannot take, we are not caught up in the moment, or we are not taken away by ink and paper, what takes us away? Because we have seen that, because as the Constitution is beginning, it will talk about the sovereignty of the people, supremacy of the Constitution, defense of the Constitution. All that is ink and paper. and you're telling these people, okay, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. If a guy entered this room with a gun, he entered this room with a gun, and another guy entered this room with a Bible. Sorry to use a Bible for us Christians. Entered this room with a Bible. And one with a Bible said, I can save your life. And one with a gun said, I can save your life if you believe in me. If you don't believe, I'll kill you. And one with a Bible says, I can save your life if you believe in me, and I'll kill you if you don't believe in me. Who would you go for? One with a gun or one with a Bible? Definitely one with a gun. True? So the question would be, does ink and paper drive us as Africans? Are we taken away with just ink and paper written down by some well-studied elites, and they're telling us this and this and this and this and this, you follow and you will have a credible election? Thank you.
Thank you. You have something to add before we go for the break?
Thank you.
I'll also get to you to add, and then we get for the break.
To me, that constitution of 1995, it's a good constitution which was in favor for democracy of us Ugandans. To a greater extent, it has been put in place, and to a smaller extent, it is not working. For example, those days back, people were not educated about these elections, had less knowledge about the elections and how to go through. But this constitution brought in the ballot papers. People now know what elections is and what to do. Days back, there were no these parties, UNUP, NRM, FDC, they were few in number. But this constitution gave them chance. So I'm ready to support NRM, is ready to support NUP, and is ready to support what? So that democracy is a little bit practiced. Then to the negative side of it, like we have those multi-party systems, but they are being tortured. You're giving me, it's like saying, you know, I'm giving you a job, and I'm paying you this certain amount of money, and like when it reaches, you say anything you do, or for example, paraffin. When you pour down this paraffin, I'm reducting. By the end of the day, when I'm to count my salary, it is all gone by the mistakes I've done. So it's like they have put their multi-party system, but again, they are torturing it. Where you find rallies of oppositions, they are being tortured, bullets. They even bring the army instead of the police. How can you bring the army is just there to provide security, not to keep law and order. For example, people are striking. How can you bring the army instead of the what? Of the police. So for me, I think to a larger extent, it has brought in, because it has a positive side of it, and also to a smaller extent, it has a negative side of it.
So if you were not to say positive and negative, what would be your assessment? Has the 1995 Constitution delivered free and fair elections?
No, to me.
All right.
That's my conclusion.
Yes, Beatrice.
Yeah, thank you so much, moderator. To also add a word on what has been said. Really, if you look at the 1995 Constitution, I would first of all thank those people who made it. They did a great role, being the first constitution of the kind in the country. But have they really taken the initiative to fulfill what is involved in the Constitution? Because if you look at its background, it comes right from, look at the 1986 elections, which not really elections. If I bring in elections, oh no, our incumbent came in with just a word. After winning, coming from the bush, then the presidential part of it came in. But as this person was coming in, we see the 10-point program. What happened here? They were emphasizing equality of all people, democracy, unity, fraternity, liberty, freedom of all. And then, what can I say? Free and fair what?
Election.
Elections. Are they there really?
Okay.
Let's turn now direct to the question which you've talked about. You've asked me about the Constitution. Has it really done anything? Let me begin from the elections, which I may call were the first. That was 2001 elections, whereby Dr. Kizza Besigye competed with our mighty president, His Excellency, the President of Uganda. What happened to him? Members, what happened?
He has been jailed.
He's been even jailed.
No, that will be seen.
It was associated with a lot of fraud, instabilities were like torture. The man was tortured to the maximum. Are we really fulfilling the demands of the Constitution? Back to the 2006 elections. What happened to Dr. Kizza Besigye? Was imprisoned just because of what? Elections. Are we exercising democracy? No. Turning still continuing. The man tried to struggle fine, but it was an impossibility. Simply because, I don't know how I can express this, but let me still base on the ballot paper.
Yeah.
Will really the ballot paper work for us?
Let's keep that
It is a
rhetoric
question.
and let's go for a short break.
Oh,
But
thank you so
very much.
much.
Thank you very much for the conversation. It's been interesting, an interesting half of the show.
Oh,
Thank you,
okay.
Jackson. Thank you, Beatrice. Thank you, Pius. Thank you, Shakira, for the interesting analysis and an interesting conversation. As you're there watching, this is Civic Space TV, Inter-University Debates. I'm hosting students of the Hope Initiative Club, the chapter at Kampala University. Stay with us as we go for a short break. Thank you.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back from that break, and thank you for staying with us, our dear esteemed viewers. This is the Inter-University Interface, and I'm joined by students from the Hope Initiative chapter of Kampala University. Just before we went into the break, the conversation around the credibility of elections in Uganda since 1961 to date was heated up. And of course, right before we went into the break, we gave an historical account to the election process that happened in 1961, 62 up to date. But also we went ahead and had an interesting conversation around whether the 1995 Constitution has given us a free and fair election. And that is where the discussion halted just before we went into the break. But now that we're back from the break, I just want us, I'll begin with Shakira. I want us to look forward, or even, okay, before we look forward, I want us to conclude the conversation around the 1995 Constitution. My question to you is, does the current electoral framework under the 1995 Constitution adequately safeguard the independence of the Electoral Commission? This question comes as a backdrop, considering that the legal regime provides that the chairman of the Electoral Commission and other commissioners are appointed by the president. So the question, therefore, is, does the current electoral framework under the 1995 Constitution adequately safeguard the independence of the Electoral Commission?
Okay. According to me, I think no. Because of like, first of all, we have the electoral commission, but it's not independent in terms of finance. So you can't say you are the electoral commission and you are getting your financial support from the executive, the president.
But it should be that way. Maybe I think the issue should be on the appointing powers.
The appointing powers.
Yeah.
Okay, about that, about the appointing powers, it means if the electoral commission is the one which takes the initiative to appoint the parliamentary leaders. So, to what extent has it put security when it comes to the votes? For example, when it comes to the votes during this 2021 elections, was it really fair and free? To me, it wasn't. Because there are some of the members who are not certain with what the votes were being counted on. They were agreed. That's why even they decided to go to the Supreme Court to ask for that, so that they can be petitioned about their what they agreed. They were not certain about the votes that they got. So, to me, to a greater extent, it hasn't really done good as in terms of elections.
Okay, thank you. Pius, my question to you is in line with democratic practice. Is Uganda's recurring cycle of contested elections a reflection of weak institutions or a reflection of a political culture? Context.
Okay.
Context. The context is, it was under the 1995 Constitution, we had approximately 6 elections. The 2005 elections was contested in 2006, particularly the presidential elections. When the Supreme Court ruled again in favor of the incumbent, who is President Museveni, we saw again another petition happen in 2012 after the 2011 elections. We saw the same happen in 2017 after the 2016 elections. And unfortunately, in 2021, we did not see any petition, but elections were contested. So the question to you is Uganda's recurring cycle of contested elections a reflection of weak institutions, or is it a reflection of political culture?
You say weak institutions.
Yes.
Now, by the mere fact that we have the confidence to carry petitions and take them to the courts of law, that means we trust them. We believe they can do something. So it's not a reflection of weak institutions. But also, it can be. It cannot be, because we have the trust and the confidence to carry our petitions, take them to court, and we, whatsoever it rules, we agree.
Yeah.
But it can also reflect that the institutions are weak. Which institutions? The Electoral Commission. They can't run an election which the countrymen can trust. Which the countrymen don't have the confidence in the Electoral Commission to run a credible, free and fair election. So it's a two-way business. Number two, you spoke about weak institutions and what?
Is it a political culture?
Political
A
culture.
reflection of political culture.
Political culture or weak institutions? I would say for political culture, it's full yes. That's who we are, as I told you.
Yeah.
I'm a young man. I'm not so much interested, I'm sorry to say this, but I'm not so much interested in what happened in the past. Yes, the past has to re-echo in my ears, only to define my future. I'm only saying, the existential question has to be there. Because if you're saying political culture, culture defines who we are.
Yeah.
It still comes back to us as Ugandans. What do we call politics? Is it anywhere different from what the West calls politics? Because I believe we trace all our roots from the shaping of the Western culture. We want to look like them in the way we handle our political space. We want to look like them in almost everything, which at times does not reflect who originally we are. So I'm saying it is a political culture because that's who we are. So we just need to define the political, what is politics to us, or what's the so-called democracy to us. He said government for the people, by the people. I think in Africa it's not that way. That's not what we call politics. I'll give you an example. When we were young, when we were still kids, it's a school of 1,000, okay, let's say a class of 200 students. This teacher comes and backs at one student, and there's an uproar in the class, arguing, no, don't do that. What you've done as a teacher is wrong. But in Africa, at the back of our mind, we are told, respect elders, regardless of whether they're right or no, and defining who we are. Now, this teacher will beat this student because, sorry, what it is? Backing, there's an uproar in class, argument. Now, this teacher will beat this student, these students that are arguing, and it will be settled just there. But there is a heart that is grieving, and it is not listened. That is what we define as, that is who we are as Africans. We let other people bleed, and we don't let them to open up, because that's who we are. Now, how does that roll into a space where we are saying everyone is inclusive, everyone can say something? Yeah. So I think it's a question of political culture. That's who we are.
All right. Let me get to you, Beatrice. The multi-party dispensation, or the multi-party democracy, as we know it, was through a referendum in that happened in 2005. We saw Ugandans overwhelmingly voting that we do away with the movement system, that is one-party system, and we have the multi-party dispensation put in place.
Yes.
And so it happened in 2005. And ever since then, we have been experiencing, we have been running, or we have been electing our leaders through a multi-party system. So my question to you is, has Uganda's multi-party system since 2005 enhanced or weakened electoral credibility?
Yeah, thank you so much, moderator. Briefly about the history of the multi-party system, I look at it as having emanated right from 1880, when we see, or rather 1980, when we see how Ugandans trying to come up with a political system which says that let's turn to the multi-party system. What do I mean? Multi-party system, this involves having more than one party in the system. Has it really strengthened our democracy? Am I right to the question? To some extent. But to some extent, yes. But really, the way we have handled the multi-party system, we may not benefit. One, we have continuously continued with our mistakes, which we have failed to solve. For example, there is a problem of the military intervention in the elections. Really, if you look at the military itself, the appointing officers are the person or the people in power. Do you think, I don't think the fact that the military is appointed by the president and the like, they cannot go against that. So there is no way you can convince me that the military is going to come up and fight against the person who appointed the military itself. What about the Electoral Commission? This one is appointed and financed by the government itself. Do you think if you're a worker or an employee of somebody, can you go against your boss?
No.
You cannot. So the multi-party system may work, but we still have challenges. Next, look at media coverage. As we are covering up as the media like television is maybe capturing the political part of it, in most cases, they move to the side of the party in power. And then the other side is always intimidated and tortured, whether they are right or wrong. So really, the multi-party system may not work effectively. I'm not blaming them for what they've done, but this is what they are meant to do. Okay. Your boss remains your what? Your boss.
I'll come back to you.
Thank you so much.
Let me just get to my brother over there. My question is going to be in line with the youth and civic education. Jackson, as a young Ugandan, do you think and believe that elections, has it been a pathway for change, or have you lost faith in the ballot?
All right, thank you. Let me give you this context. Ugandans, one of the reasons why we use elections, it is for having a peaceful transition of power, right? And one of the peaceful transition of power is using a ballot box. But as the youths of today, we have now realized that it is no longer applicable to us. Let me put it in that way. We have used the ballot box for over many times, that is from 2005, 2011, 2016, to 2021. The extent that we have lost hope, let me say like that. Because the scenario that is in Uganda is like my mother telling me to wash the dishes, right? But she's having the stick in her hand. And she has said that you can either wash or don't, but she's having the stick in her. So it's like I'm being given freedom, but the decision will remain the same, because if I don't do it, or there is a presence of the rule. Now, there is what we call intimidation, especially in the youth. The extent that even right now, when we are here just on this panel, many people have failed to turn up for this because there is a fear. Do you realize that? Yeah. Because just the mere telling us that there is going to be a discussion about the elections or politics of Uganda, somebody, the first question would be, are we safe? Right? Because you're going to be lying. So there is that intimidation also. Talk about the militarization. My sister talked about involvement of the military in things concerning elections. What we all know, the primary role of the army is to keep the people from the exterior attacks. And the issues of keeping the law, because elections, that is law and order. It is the work of the police, but we are at an extent of seeing military soldiers when it comes to elections. We evidenced this in 2021, when we saw many military people on the road. That was COVID, but they were on the road. It's like they are telling you to do something, but you just observing it, there is an indirect goal for you. So realize that the youth have lost hope in the ballot.
Okay. Let me get to you, Shakira. You had something to say before I find your question.
Okay. I had an addition to Beatrice's comment about what you have asked, that the question it was, multi-party system, has it really encouraged the elections, or it has weakened it, the electoral commission? To me, it has weakened it. Take for instance, now we are going in the period, we're already in the period of elections also. Yeah. But just people are just scared of chaos, threats, and insecurity. Because they know everybody has its own supporters. NUP has, DP has, NRM has. Now, for instance, all of them, they're struggling for power. NUP wants power, NRM wants power, and DP wants what? Wants power. So that only brings insecurity. Now, you may find that a lot of NUP is passing through Ginger. Now it interacts with a lot of NRM. What will be that? There will be chaos, fighting, even destruction of properties, right? For me, I think if we, as one Uganda, we come up with only one political party that we entrust in, and we put it under power, and we follow that, then there will be any more.
I want to disagree with that.
Go ahead.
Because the spirit of multi-party dispensation, the spirit is one, diversity of ideology. Number two, inclusion. The peasants have a voice, the Common Peasants Party. The people of the red color have a voice. That's what they believe in as their ideology. The people of the yellow team, that's their ideology. So if you speak about single party system, you're frustrating some voices. So number one, the multi-party dispensation has played something to give us a variety of ideology. I may believe in the ideology of this party and not believe in the ideology of another party, because that's the spirit. That's the spirit.
Okay.
Hey, so I would like to argue with this man about that. Yeah, to me, what I think, people are using some of these parties just for fun. Eh? Just using the youth to carry out chaos, to create insecurity. For example, you may find somebody when is contacting for the votes, is asking for the votes of people, but people are being destroyed their properties. They are using some people there. When it comes to a group is divided of people who are indisciplined, people who are not respected. So if it comes that Noop is the one taking Larry's here, it involves every kashisha in that category. You may find distance of where this child of Mobile who was being threatened by this NRM. Do you remember that instance?
No,
they were moving the NRM group youth, and that guy in that instance was killed. That's what I'm talking of.
Can I
And
disagree?
even there was even another scenario.
It's okay. Let me just hold you there. It looks like there's a lot of disagreement coming to you with your suggestion of a movement system. Let's have Jackson.
I'm just objecting on her point. Like, I'm just in her favor. The multi-party system has reached a point whereby people are no longer even looking at the reason why it was introduced, but they are now looking at the expenses. Realize that you find many people are even discussing that. But you realize that the multi-party system, because the results are they have a part of budget, right?
Money.
So they are now considering that. Don't you think that these people, they are just wasting part of our money? Because there is, we may have the diversity of ideologies in it, but remember, there is only one party ruling, right?
But are you cognizant of the fact that the challenge could be on grounds that Ugandans lack the civic knowledge to, of course, because you see, the idea behind the
multi-party system,
dispensation, as you said, is to give Ugandans alternatives. And those alternatives, with the movement system, irrespective of your differing ideology, you have to vote for that particular party.
That is it.
Now, on that ground or on that premise, that is why Ugandans in 2005 overwhelmingly voted for the multi-party dispensation. So my submission, or if how I look at it,
To me.
Why don't we go ahead, because the Electoral Commission is charged with the responsibility of civic education. And they have a budget for it. In all languages across the country. Tell people about their rights, about why they should vote, about who they should vote in regards to the issues that these people are solving. So, would you still side with movement system?
No.
So
the thing is,
I want to finalize the argument this way. It's like this. If you talk about the movement system, as you said, it's a singular ideology. We move with that, we go with that, nothing else. Multi-party dispensation, differing ideologies. Now, the problem is not the multi-party system. It comes to what you've said, civic education, but number two, there's something in Africa we play. We play the politics of persons, not the politics of idea. We front persons than idea.
They have their own interest. You remember these parties get money from the main...
From the budget, of course.
Budget, of course. So I may even have Station Man also his own party.
Let's listen to Beatrice. You have something to say?
Viva Kampala University.
Viva.
Please, let's first calm down. Who is responsible for the ballot papers, making of the ballot papers?
The Electoral Commission.
The Electoral Commission in guidance.
And conducting the elections. That's all its role.
Okay. What am I trying to derive at? If you talk about the issue of the multi-party system winning the case, it may not necessarily work, simply because there is only one person who is responsible for the making of the ballot papers. What about the voter registers? Who makes them? And who recommends them before being...
Please.
Now, that ceases to be a problem with multi-party system. It ceases to be their problem. Now it comes to how policies are made in favor of
Simply put,
multi-party system.
electoral framework.
Electoral framework.
Yeah.
It ceases to be a problem of multi-party
The
system.
framework that exists gives the president the prerequisite to appoint the chairperson of the EC. So, is it the problem of multi-party system, or is it a problem with our electoral framework that gives the person in the president powers to appoint the person who is going to be responsible for their election process?
I will not say we electing leaders who are weak, but it may be the case. Because if I will give an example of where the education sector is going. Have you been critical really on the education sector? Look at how the education system has been disorganized. Are we going to have a Uganda in the future? What am I trying to say? The Electoral Commission is there, but they cannot even advise our president that please.
They have no that power. Where have they get that authority? When even they find they are using it.
So can you say that multi-party system will really be affected?
I think that is out of question. Multi-party system, ideally, from its premise of it is an alternative to offer people options to vote for.
Yeah.
From that prerequisite,
Maybe
we have
one
settled
of
the
the
debate.
values.
Multi-party system is a good option.
It's a
The question is the prerequisite bestowed upon the president to appoint the electoral commission, the commissioners, the chairperson of the EC. That is the framework that the issue is. But anyway, as we wind the conversation, I want to give all of you a chance to moving forward, what are the solutions for Uganda to hold a free, credible, and fair election? I'll begin with Jackson as I come this side.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
For the issue of recommending, right, how we should have a free and fair elections, we should first of all go to the basis of unity. You know, Uganda is comprised of very many tribes with different cultures and ideologies. So one of the things that I think we must uphold is making sure that there is unity in Uganda. And the issue of unity, we are going to do it, that is through what we call patriotism. There is patriotism that we experience, let me put it that way, in institutions where we see, especially secondary levels, where we see these students learning patriotism. But in actual sense, they don't learn to love their country. They learn to fight for their country. Because most of the activities they do, they are most of teaching them how to combat military drills, right? But teaching these people that we should love our country. We should include the unity, the heart of love. The heart of love in a way that, because even the patriotism that is being taught, it is limited. It is limited to only those ones who attend schools. So that one brings me back to the civic sensitization. We should sensitize people about loving. Like, what is the importance of Jackson, having to write a paper or document, and it requires me to write my tribe on it if I'm applying for a job. Like, does it implement that, or does it show that some things are meant for these tribes, these ones are not? Because if you include the tribe, then there is something which is not unified. We should improve on unity. So my point will be increasing unity, that is by promoting real patriotism.
All right. And your concluding remarks?
Okay, my concluding remarks. First of all, I'm concluding basing for the youth, because I'm a young adult of Uganda. So I would like to emphasize the youths. Let's not lose hope. You see, if you find the house disorganized, it does not mean that you should leave, right? If at all we can do something to clean the house and at least make it better for our next future, because it is today us, tomorrow it will be our next generation, and but the Uganda won't change. Okay. So let's not lose hope. We uphold the elections. We should participate. We should enjoy what the Uganda calls the so freely and fair elections.
All right, thank you. Beatrice, your recommendations and concluding remarks.
Thank you so much, our moderator, Civic TV. Thank you for the opportunity granted to me to at least give a conclusion or recommendations to today's topic. One, I will encourage the current government to go back to the grassroots, the people where we are coming from. Let them be educated on one, loving their country and know what they should do. Because there are so many things in the area, in fact, affecting the livelihood of people. We can not only look at politics, there is also the social part of it, and then the economic status of the people. They're also very, very important. So let the current government go back to the grassroots, then educate the people in the villages about the love for their country. Leaving alone that, let's have a group of people who at least know what to do. Let's educate them. Civic education is important in our communities. Let it not remain on maybe on the upper levels, but even the local people in the villages, including children, so that we come up with a generation which knows what to do. Yeah. Then I also encourage our security part of it. They've been one of the major disorganizers of our economy, really. Fine, I will not say they're not doing what is right. What they do is right, but sometimes they go astray. That they've brought about instabilities and insecurity in our areas. We have children in our areas whereby when a child sees a gun, is
intimidated.
So much intimidated, they even fear. So please, let them have a limit on how they are handling our villages. Leaving alone that, let the government also use the mass media, the televisions like Civic Space TV. In fact, if I may say, I even don't know where it came from, very far. But at least I've been in position, I've learned something out of this. Yeah. The media helps us so much because even in the local areas, in our rural areas, we listen to them. Let the government broadcast what is happening in the government, the electoral process, through radios, through televisions. It will help us to come up with a good new generation. Okay. Maybe to conclude. As I conclude, we need to put our country in the hands of God. Prayers are very, very important. If we are to come up with an organized nation and an organized younger generation and the future of Uganda. And if that fails, let's go back to the people who initiated democracy because they are doing it right. Let them come up with a constitution and then bring to us and tell us, please.
Really? Anyway, I'll not interject, but let's conclude.
No, that was a by the way. But it can also work because if they help us and say, please, if it comes to term limits, if you finish the first one, the second one should be for another what? Person. These Africans have that respect, the respect for the Europeans. They'll say, please, order from where? Above. Order from above. Term limit, yours has ended.
The next person take over.
The next person should take over. And this should not be hereditary. It is not kingship. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
our moderator.
Thank you. Pius.
Yes, this is it. You see, I was driving somewhere before you. Yeah, I was talking about the politics of persons and not idea. That's what we do in Africa. We front a person, then when the person is normal, the idea is normal, because that's who we are. As I was driving the whole conversation, I was coming to this point. The thing is, Uganda's problem, sorry for Africa, but Uganda's problem is not the constitution. Uganda's problem may also not be civic education, that lack of civic education. But Uganda's problem is to go back and redefine what Uganda is. Who are we? One white man came from wherever they came from and clamped all these 56 tribes together and says, boom, you have a country to your own. Manage yourselves. And all these countries are grumbling, this one is stabbing this one is stabbing this, and all the things reflect in how issues are handled in this country, in the elections, in the political space, everywhere. Because we need to define, who are we? Who are we? That's the core question. Because even if we had the best constitution, but the citizens cannot have the confidence in the constitution, it's a waste of time. Even if we had this discussion for hours and hours, time and again, and we have not defined who are we, it's we are discussing with ourselves when we're coming here. And if up to date, I still look at Onen as, which tribe are you? Sorry to ask.
Actually, I'm Acholi.
Acholi.
Yeah.
Okay, you are Acholi. If up
The
to
politics
date,
of identity.
the politics of identity. If up to date, I still look at you as Acholi and me, I'm Uganda. If up to date we still have that discussion, then the constitution is a waste of time. The whole thing of elections is a waste of time if I still look at you as Acholi and not Ugandan. So what am I driving at? These are my parting shots. Let's define our motherland. Let's define the future. Which course are we taking? What are we driving at? Are we still together? Thank you.
Thank you. Shakira.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. So to me, as you have talked about what should Electoral Commission do to improve our elections. First of all, I think we could adopt one of the policies in other countries, for example, this one of South Africa, where it introduced the independent Electoral Commission, which does not depend on the government, or which does not depend on the executive for finance. So, as the Electoral Commission of Uganda, I think we can adopt that. We don't depend on, you're electing a man, and he's the one paying you. So what do you expect? So I think we should look for all ways of financing our what? Independently, our Electoral Commission. Then another thing, I think we should use the media, talk to people like the way we are here. Like you encourage people, tell them the usefulness of voting, why we should vote, what are the results after what? Voting. Then another thing, let's not lose hope in our Electoral Commission, because I know everything has a negative and a positivity. No matter what negative it is, but it has some positivity, because the 1995 Constitution, it's a good constitution if you are to read through it. It gave multi-party system, it gave freedom to democracy, terms and limits for what? For our leaders as the president. So for me, I think we should revise it, or we should implement it. We should look through it, and again we go through it and we see where the weakness is, then we bring it back. Then another thing, what I would conclude with, to me, Electoral Commission is doing a lot. You know, as our president went to war, guerrilla war, just because he was not okay with the votes, and he says, let me go to war to acquire the what? The throne. So it means even Amin Dada did the same, right? So it's not always the wrong one. Because what I know, even though you choose another person, but when he also has the other interest, when he has his own interest, except the country's love, we also do the what? The same. So what I'm saying, I know Electoral Commission, it has its weaknesses, but try to revise them, so as we can put, people can put trust in you.
All right.
So thank you so much. Yeah, those are my
Thank you.
remarks.
Thank you very much, Akira, Pius, Beatrice, and Jackson for taking time and joining us in this conversation. It's been lovely and interesting having all of you and listening to your insights. Otherwise, personally, I've enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully, we keep the conversation going. And to our esteemed viewers out there, for always religiously following the conversation, feel free to drop your comments in the comment section. But always, for those who haven't yet followed Civic Space TV, go ahead and subscribe. And of course, keep the conversation going on in the comment section. My name is Douglas Trekonen. See you next week, same time, same place.